Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of Regalytics. Welcome to this week's Regulatory Roundup, hosted in the fresh snow of Steamboat, Colorado. Here are the most interesting alerts from the 2,537 that came in last week. The regulator of the week is the FTC. They wrote a blog this week that caught my eye. The FTC is concerned that promoters of goods and services seem to make way more money than the actual goods and services they purport to promote. In fact, dozens of cases dating back to the 1940s have shown enforcement from multiple agencies challenging false or unsubstantiated money-making promises. To that end, the FTC is considering a new rule that targets misleading claims for coaching programs, multi-level marketing plans, franchises, chain referrals, jobs, gigs, and e-commerce. This comes on the heels of the final results of its years-long investigation into DeVry University. The U.S. Department of Education will officially forgive $71.7 million in federal student loans for students that were deceived by the for-profit university, based in part on the FTC's prior action. The school's already paid $49.4 million to the FTC for partial refunds to some students and $50.6 million in relief from debt owed to DeVry. Along the same lines this week, the FTC fined a real estate investment coaching company $12 million to pay back consumers who'd paid them thousands of dollars for this so-called coaching that was ultimately based on false earning claims. The topic of the week is valuation fraud. Last week, it was Headspin. This week, it was the chief investment officer of Infinity Q Capital Management for overvaluing assets by more than $1 billion while pocketing tens of millions in fees. And this is all following the collapse of the investment firm itself. So this seems to be a new trend each week. So VCs, private equity funds, anyone that you need to be focused on valuations, make sure your processes are buttoned up. Moving on to Compliance Corner, for those of you in the RRP world, the FDIC released the hypothetical economic scenarios for use in upcoming stress tests. For those of you into fintech, blockchain, etc., the state of Maryland is proposing a decentralized financial regulatory sandbox program to test experimental financial products in the state without a license. And here's a handy one. The U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency put out a free cybersecurity services and tools webpage intended to be a one-stop resource where organizations of all sizes can find free public and private sector resources to reduce their cybersecurity risk. To my fellow startups, go and get educated. Cyber attacks are now a pretty regular headache for all businesses, and you just can't be operating these days without a plan. Remember last week when the U.S. Senate Banking Committee ranking member Pat Toomey was alarmed about a small fintech called Reserve Trust because it got access to the Fed's payment system? Well, apparently the Republican committee is holding the issue hostage along with their votes for additional nominations to the Federal Reserve. So keep your eye on that. Washington State is all over climate change this week, starting with the Office of the Governor hosting a virtual town hall with the former Vice President Al Gore. And yesterday, there was a hearing on a new bill in the state that would impose a state climate resiliency and mitigation surcharge on large financial institutions. Washington is proposing this charge beginning January 1st of 2023 for any financial institution that is banking the fossil fuel industry players. That's it this week for Regalytics. We have the most comprehensive, coherent, and customizable regulatory alerts tool in the world. Come and see how company after company is transforming their compliance with this kind of transparency. See you next Wednesday, because now it's time to go ski.